Hello my friends, it's Kayla. I am here with my 10th episode in the upcoming Books That Sound Cool series, where I see a title or a cover that intrigues me and then I read the synopsis for the first time with you and we decide together if we want to read it. I used to do a monthly bookish news segment here on YouTube. I think I did it for years and it was all about like adaptations and books and everything combined. And then I realized I just care more about the books themselves, and there's enough news like every month. I think I have 30, maybe 40 things to talk about today. So I'll get out of the way so I can put some things right here. First, of course, I have to talk about Seasonal Fears. Middle Game is one of my favorite books of all time. I don't think it needs a sequel, but I have been supporting the right to a sequel for a while, and I think there's even going to be a third one if this one goes well. The cover is fine for me. Not as exciting as the first book, but that's fine. Let's see what it says. Have I ever read this? I don't think so. Melanie has a destiny, though it isn't the one everyone assumes it to be. She's delicate, she's fragile, she's dying. Now, truly, is the winter of her soul. Harry doesn't want to believe in destiny because that means accepting the loss of the one person that gives his life meaning, who brings summer to his world. So when a new road is laid out in front of them, a road that will lead them through untold dangers towards a possible lifetime together, walking down it seems to be the only option. But others are following behind with violence in their hearts. It looks like destiny has a plan for them after all. Dun, dun, dun. I know Shauna has said some things about Seasonal Fears and I want to make sure I get it right. So the first book followed Roger and Dodger, and they're twins, and it's about the alchemical arts, and it's about ascending to godhood. So she says Seasonal Fears is set in the same world as Middle Game and after the events of Middle Game, but it is not a direct sequel. You'll see Roger and Dodger, but only for a few pages. This isn't their story. I'll obviously read anything in this universe. Like, Middle Game is top 5 favorite books of all time, so we will see how this one goes. I'm totally down. The next one, I'm trying to look through to see what ones have covers. Oh yeah, Anna Marie McLemore, Lake Lore got announced and the cover came out and it looks a little creepy. And I definitely haven't read this, so let's see. All of AM's books have like a water setting. Either the whole thing revolves around water or there's always like a scene where something magical takes place in the water, like a transformation of sorts, and I love all the metaphors. So this one says, everyone who lives near the lake knows the stories about the world underneath it, an ethereal landscape rumored to be half air, half water. But Bastian Silvano and Lore Garcia are the only ones who've been there. Bastian grew up above the lake and in the otherworldly space beneath it. Lore's only seen the world under the lake once, but that one encounter changed their life and their fate. Then the lines between air and water begin to blur. The world under the lake drifts above the surface. If Bastian and Lore don't want to bring their secrets to the surface with it, they have to stop it, and to do that they have to work together. There's just one problem. Bastian and Lore haven't spoken in 7 years, and working together means trusting each other with the very things they're trying to hide. Okay, once again, I'll read anything that they come out with, so I'm down, I'm intrigued, I'm here. Okay, next up, The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Love Lucy Foley's covers. I really enjoyed the guest list. So this one, Jess needs a fresh start. She's broken alone and she's just left her job under less than ideal circumstances. Her half-brother Ben didn't sound thrilled when she asked if she could crash with him for a bit, but he didn't say no. And surely everything will look better from Paris. Only when she shows up to find a very nice apartment could Ben really have afforded this. He's not there. I read that sentence very poorly, sorry. The longer Ben stays missing, the more Jess starts to dig into her brother's situation and the more questions she has. Ben's neighbors are an eclectic bunch and not particularly friendly. Jess may have come to Paris to escape her past, but it's starting to look like it's Ben's future that's in question. The socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor. Everyone's a suspect. And everyone knows something they're not telling. Ooh, that sounds right up my alley. I've read so many books that are about like a sister or friend or partner who go and stay in someone else's house or apartment, and I think that that's a trope I really enjoy. Not a trope, a theme, a storyline. Sign me up. Should we read it for the Literally Dead book club? Let me know. Next up, I'm so excited about The Sea of Tranquility, or sorry, just Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. Station 11 is one of my favorite things. And then what did she recently come out with? The Glass Hotel. I enjoyed more than I thought I would. And this one sounds like it's more in the vein of Station 11 because it has to do with a plague again. Edwin St. Andrew is 18 years old when he crosses the Atlantic by steamship, exiled from polite society following an ill-conceived diatribe at a dinner party. He enters the forest spellbound by the beauty of the Canadian wilderness and suddenly hears the notes of a violin echoing in an airship terminal, an experience that shocks him to his core. 2 centuries later, a famous writer named Olive Llewellyn is on a book tour. She's traveling all over Earth, but her home is the Second Moon Colony, a place of white stone spired towers and artificial beauty. Within the text of Olive's best-selling pandemic novel lies a strange passage. A man plays his violin for change in the echoing corridor of an airship terminal as the trees of the forest rise around him. Wait, what? When Gatsby Jacques Roberts, a detective in the black-skied night city, is hired to investigate an anomaly in the North American wilderness, he uncovers a series of lives upended. I told you last time, upended is the new favorite word of everybody who's ever written a synopsis. The exiled son of an earl driven to madness, a writer trapped far from home as the pandemic ravages Earth, and a childhood friend from the night city who, like Gatsby himself, has glimpsed the chance to do something extraordinary that will disrupt the timeline of the universe. I think I understand, but I don't know for sure. It has to do with time leaps, the moon, and the pandemic. Like, that sounds like something I should read. Please let me know which of these is intriguing to you. Next up, different change of pace, Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I thought this was a sequel to something, but maybe it's not. After serving 5 years in prison for a tragic mistake, Kenna Rowan returns to the town where it all went wrong, hoping to reunite with her 4-year-old daughter. But the bridges Kenna burned are proving impossible to rebuild. Everyone in her new daughter's life is determined to shut Kenna out, no matter how hard she works to prove herself. The only person who hasn't closed the door on her completely is Ledger Ward, a local bar owner and one of the few remaining links to Kenna's daughter. But if anyone were to discover how Ledger is slowly becoming an important part of Kenna's life, both would risk losing the trust of everyone important to them. The two form a connection despite the pressure surrounding them, and as their romance grows, so does the risk. Kenna must find a way to absolve the mistakes of her past in order to build a future out of hope and healing. Interesting. I will say the Colleen Hoovers that I've read where the protagonist has a child have always been my least favorites. I'm not saying it's because of the child, but that's just something that I've noticed. At least it's not a surprise child this time. Next up, we have another collab between Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This will be their 4th and my 4th time reading from them. I have liked only one of their collaborations, but I'm going to keep picking them up. I absolutely hate the cover, and I wonder if there's going to be more covers. If Avery Chambers can't fix you in 10 sessions, she won't take you on as a client. Okay, so we have another, like, therapist, perhaps, story. Her successes are phenomenal. She helps people overcome anything from domineering parents to assault and almost absorb the emptiness she sometimes feels since her husband's death. Marissa and Matthew Bishop seem like the golden couple until Marissa cheats. She wants to repair things both because she loves her husband and for the sake of their 8-year-old son. After a friend forwards an article about Avery, Marissa takes a chance on this maverick therapist who lost her license due to controversial methods. When the Bishops glide through Avery's door and Marissa reveals her infidelity, all three are set on a collision course because the biggest secrets in the room are still hidden and it's no longer simply a marriage that's in danger. I do appreciate that their books have pretty short synopses that don't go into too much of the plot. It's just like the general idea, so you're not spoiled for too much. I'm gonna read it. I don't know if I'm gonna like it. Okay, and then this one by Peter Swanson, I was just scrolling through my Goodreads one day and it had a title and cover and synopsis and everything, and it had just been sitting blank for so long, but I think it's probably been officially announced now. It's called 9 Lives. I feel okay about the cover. I like the concept, but it's like a little too dark for me. But it is in vein with his more recent one that I didn't love. I digress. 9 strangers receive a list with their names on it in the mail. Nothing else, just a list of names on a single sheet of paper. None of the 9 people know or have ever met the others on the list. They dismiss it like junk mail, a fluke, until very, very bad things begin happening to the people on the list. First, a well-liked old man is drowned on a beach in the small town of Kennewick, Maine. Then a father is shot in the back while running through his quiet neighborhood in suburban Massachusetts. A frightening pattern is emerging, and what do the 9 people have in common? Their professions range from oncology nurse to aspiring actor. FBI agent Jessica Winslow, who's on the list herself, is determined to find out. Could there be some dark secret that binds them all together, or is this the work of a murderous madman? As the mysterious sender stalks these 9 strangers, they find themselves constantly looking over their shoulder, wondering who will be crossed off next. Okay, so it feels kind of similar to 8 Perfect Murders, and I love the gimmick of like, we're following a list of people. Don't love that it's from the perspective of a detective, but if I am gonna love a detective story, maybe Peter Swanson's the one to do it. Next up, another thriller author I'm quite familiar with, Gillian McMillan. This one is called The Long Weekend. I don't like the cover, not that anyone cares. 3 couples, 2 bodies, 1 secret. That's the setup. Darkfell Barn is a perfectly isolated retreat. Love stories of isolation. Or so it says on the website when Jane books a reservation for her friends. A quiet place far removed from the rest of the world is exactly what they need. The women arrive for a girls' night ahead of their husbands. There's ex-army Jane, hardened and serious and also damaged. Ruth, the driven doctor and new mother who is battling demons of her own. Young Emily, just wed and insecure, the newest addition to this tight-knit band. Missing this year is Edie, who was the glue holding them all together until her husband died suddenly. But what they hoped would be a relaxing break soon turns into horror. The women find a devastating note claiming one of their husbands will be murdered. Okay, there's a trend. There is a trend in thrillers where notes are arriving, warning you of your upcoming demise. Okay, next I'm going to fly through a couple that have new covers that I've talked about before. So if you feel like going back in the playlist and watching these old ones, or you just want to look at the Goodreads, or you just want to know the things that you've already added have gotten covers. One of them is from Dust Aflame by Rebecca Potus. If you want a good standalone fantasy that I really enjoyed, I would recommend checking out her one, The Wise and the Wicked. And this one seems to be another standalone fantasy where it's like a girl wakes up on her 17th birthday and is kind of transformed into some type of creature. The next one, another standalone fantasy by Claire Legrand, Ecstasia, I think it's pronounced. The cover is fine for me. I like that it says for fans of The Gracier, The Handmaid's Tale, Courtney Summers, and Shirley Jackson. This one follows a powerful heroine in a world filled with secrets and blood. Ooh, and then this one I think I just talked about last time, Queen of the Tiles by Hannah Alcaff. I really enjoy this cover, and this is the one that has to do with Scrabble, which is like my favorite game, and I never knew that I needed a story about Scrabble, but I'm absolutely going to read this. Then we have covers, multiple covers for The Drowning Summer by Christine Lynn Herman. This one I hadn't seen. It looks kind of like Lake Lore, but then it got this new one, and I like it better. Let me know what you think these days. Where are you at with like illustrated covers versus real people on covers? Because there were decades where the cover of books were just real photographs of people, and then we got into illustrations and everybody loved it, and now I feel like so many people are sick of everything being illustrated. This might actually be illustrated, but like it's illustrated in a very realistic way. 6 years ago, 3 teenagers were murdered. It's the one that I told you about where they put like coins over the people's eyes, and then our main character's family works as media, summoning ghosts and finding out the truth about these murders. I think is what's going on. Another sequel we can talk about, that I should have put all the sequels together, but that's fine. This is called Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. It's the sequel to Black Sun, which I still haven't read, but I will. I'm doing it, I promise. It's funny, everybody has been roasting the absolute shit out of this cover, and I too don't like it, but honestly, like Black Sun isn't really a cover that I look at and think it's drastically different from Fevered Star. So I'm not gonna read the synopsis because I haven't read Black Sun, but just know this is the sequel. It's the second book in the Between Earth and Sky series. Don't know how many books are planned for it. Next up is a prequel. It's Pet.5 and it's called Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. I love the art style and it definitely fits with Pet. I enjoyed Pet enough, I think, to pick up a prequel. I don't know if this is going to spoil anything. Bitter is thrilled to have been chosen to attend Eucalyptus, a special school where she can focus on her paintings surrounded by other creative teens. But then something, Bitter isn't sure where she belongs in the art studio or on the streets. Next, we have a book by Aisha Saeed. I really loved Amal Unbound, and this has a very similar style, and it's called Omar Rising. So I'm assuming it's a companion, because it doesn't say sequel. Yes, okay, companion. Omar knows his scholarship to the boarding school is a game changer, providing him, the son of a servant, with an opportunity to improve his station in life. He can't wait to experience all the school has to offer, especially science club and hopefully the soccer team. But when he arrives, his hopes are dashed. First-year scholarship students aren't allowed to join clubs or teams, and not only that, they have to earn their keep doing menial chores. At first, Omar is dejected, but then he gets angry when he learns something even worse. The school deliberately weeds out kids like him by requiring them to get significantly higher grades than the kids who can pay tuition. I think that's going to have, just like Amal Unbound, some really interesting commentary with a super, like, strong and interesting main character. Okay, next up, I saw this one, which I absolutely despise how it looks. And I also didn't like All the Light We Cannot See, but I wanted to share this with you in case you didn't know that Anthony Doerr has another book coming out very soon. It's called Cloud Cuckoo Land. I've never seen anyone mention it, but I'm sure the people who read this type of thing typically like have already been talking about it. Oh god, it's 640 pages. It says 13-year-old Anna, an orphan, lives inside the formidable walls of Constantinople in a house of women who make their living embroidering the robes of priests. Restless, insatiably curious, Anna learns to read, and in this ancient city famous for its library, she reads the book The Story of Aethon, who longs to be turned into a bird so he can fly to the utopian paradise in the sky. This she reads to her ailing sister as the walls of the only place she's known are bombarded in the great siege of Constantinople. Outside the walls is Omir, a village boy miles from home, conscripted with his beloved oxen in the invading army his path and Anna's will cross. 500 years later, in the Library of Idaho, octogenarian Zeno, who learned Greek as a prisoner of war, rehearses 5 children in a play adapted of Aethon's story, preserved against all odds through centuries. I actually think that sounds more interesting than I assumed, though clearly I don't know enough history, but I might actually pick that up. It comes out in like September. Okay, and then just a bunch of recently announced things without covers. Emily Tesh, who you might know as the author of Drowned Country and Silver in the Wood, has something coming up called Some Desperate Glory, and this says, all her life Kier has trained for the day she can avenge the murder of planet Earth. Raised in the bowels of Gaia Station, alongside the last scraps of humanity, she readies herself to face the Wisdom, an all-powerful reality-shaping weapon that gave the Majota their victory over humanity. I added this because I thought it was going to be like a short novella, but it doesn't sound like it would be a novella. But just in case it is, I am keeping it on my radar. Next up, this popped up somewhere, called The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. I know some of you read Reverie and Bedazzled. So this one says that it's Heathers meets Midsummer, which is interesting. It's a really short blurb. It just says The Honeys is set at an elitist sleepaway camp in the Catskills and follows a character named Mars in their journey to uncover the truth behind the tragic accident that has ended their twin sister's life. Apparently it's horror, so that sounds great to me. Next up, Phil Stamper, who wrote The Gravity of Us. I am interested in picking up more from him. This one just showed up on Goodreads. It says Small Town Pride. That's the title, and that's all I know. So I'm keeping it on my radar to see if when the cover and synopsis comes out, it sounds intriguing. Next up, I love when books have like mini covers, like little teasers, just because it looks so much nicer on my shelves. And also I can show you something here. So this isn't the final cover of Echo Sunset, but Courtney Gold, who wrote The Dead in the Dark, I said when I read that I would definitely pick up more from her. So this supernatural thriller follows 2 sisters who, after their mother dies, learns about their mysterious ties to an isolated Arizona town. When they decide to investigate, nothing and no one is who they seem, including the daughter of the town's enigmatic leader. We've got similar vibes to The Dead in the Dark. Next one, another teaser cover, says Gay Titanic in Space. Is not coming out until 2024 apparently, by Aiden Thomas. but I know we all love Cemetery Boys so much. I didn't pick up Lost in the Neverwoods, but if you did and you have loved it, let me know. But I definitely will be picking up this one. Next up, I don't know if you all saw, but Libba Bray has something called Under the Same Stars. I think it was a couple months ago and I just missed it, but it says, this YA historical fiction novel follows two unnamed teens murdered under a mystical oak tree during the height of World War II. The branches of their mystery stretch to Cold War Germany and present-day New York as love, resistance, and justice entangle to reveal shocking truths. I don't typically love historical fiction, but of the historical fiction that I've read and enjoyed, Libba Bray was responsible for a good amount of it. Next up, I see this book called 3 Kisses, 1 Midnight, attributed to 3 different authors: Roshani Chokshi, Sandy Menon, and Evelyn Skye. I haven't heard of Evelyn Skye. Oh, she wrote The Crown's Game. Okay. It has no description, but I think the authors talked about it being a Halloween-themed book about witches and best friends. Next up, I have an anthology on my list. I'm just going through all my Goodreads to see what I've most recently added to my shelves. That's how I do these videos. This one's called 14 Days, An Unauthorized Gathering, and I know it was inspired by the COVID lockdowns. 14 Days is a surprising and irresistibly propulsive novel with an unusual twist. Each character in this diverse, eccentric cast of New York neighbors has been secretly written by a different major literary voice, from Margaret Atwood and Douglas Preston to Tommy Orange and Celeste Ng. The tenants, some of whom have barely spoken to each other, become real neighbors. In this Decameron-like serial novel, star-studded list of people, dazzling, heartwarming collection. This list of authors is very good for me. Next up, another fake cover, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I really liked The Hollow Places, and I am listening to your advice and reading The Twisted Ones someday. It is a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's classic, The Fall of the House of Usher. It says, when Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that their childhood friend Madeline Usher is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruritania. What they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife surrounding a dark, pulsing lake. Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night, and her brother Roderick is consumed with a mysterious malady of the nerves. I don't even know what any of that means, but it is a novella, so I will be reading it 100%. Next up, I found another Megan Golden is coming up. She wrote The Night Swim that I like, and it's called Stay Awake. That's all we know. It comes out a year from now. No information. Is it on my radar? Absolutely already. Oh, this one has a full cover. Let me talk about this one. It's called We Were Kings by Court Stevens, who wrote my all-time favorite book, Dress Codes for Small Towns. This always happens. There's like never any teasers about her books. It's just there. Like all the information is just suddenly there. So let's read this together. 20 years ago, 18-year-old Frances Quick was convicted of murdering her best friend Cora King and sentenced to death. Now the highly debated Accelerated Death Penalty Act passes. I did read a little bit of this before. I don't think this was the title. I knew it was about this Accelerated Death Penalty Act. Anyway, it gives Frankie 30 final days to live. From the king's own family rises up the one who will challenge the woefully inadequate evidence and potentially innocence of Frances Quick. I don't understand what that just said. The at first reluctant and soon fiery Nyla and her sidekick, Sam Stack, bring Frankie's case to the international stage through her YouTube channel, Death Days. They step into fame at a hometown battle that someone's still willing to kill over. The senator, the philanthropist, the pawn shop owner, Nyla's own mother. Best advice, don't go to family dinner with the Kings. More people will leave the dining room in body bags than on their own 2 feet. And for Frances Quick, she's a gem, even if she's guilty. I'm definitely going to read it. I haven't experienced the magic from Courtney Stevens since like my favorite book that I read, and I'm trying to figure out if that one was a fluke. Maybe we'll know after this one. Back to things without covers. Sabina Khan, who wrote a book I liked, The Love and Lies of Rukhsana Ali, has an upcoming book that was just announced called Meet Me in Mumbai. It says a novel in 2 acts, told 18 years apart, one of my favorite things, gives voice to both a mother and daughter after an unplanned teen pregnancy. That sounds kind of like The How and the Why by Cynthia Hand. Oh, another teaser cover, I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. I didn't like Red, White, and Royal Blue, but I recently read One Last Stop, so keep an eye out for my vlog finding out my thoughts about that. This says swoon-worthy rom-coms and Casey McQuiston have become synonymous in our minds, blah, blah, blah. That's not the actual synopsis. Oh, there isn't one. It just says it's a fierce, funny, and frank young adult novel about breaking the rules, getting messy, and finding love in unexpected places. Oh, cool. That sounds great. Some of the reviews talk more, so Casey must have talked about it on like their Twitter or something, but people are saying that it is an academic enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers story, which is always fun. What's next? I added this thriller from an author I've never read from, and there's no cover. What intrigued me? What did I read? I think I might have just read the title. It's called The Overnight Guest. A woman receives an unexpected visitor during a deadly snowstorm in this chilling thriller. True crime writer Wiley Clark doesn't mind being snowed in at the isolated farmhouse where she's retreated to write her new book. It would be perfect if not for the fact that decades earlier at this very house, 2 people were murdered in cold blood and a girl disappeared without a trace. As the storm worsens, Wiley finds herself trapped inside the house, haunted by the secrets contained within its walls, haunted by the secrets of her own. Then she discovers a small child in the snow just outside. Bringing the child inside for warmth and safety, she begins to search for answers, but soon it becomes clear that the farmhouse isn't as isolated as she thought. Ooh! It says atmospheric and claustrophobic. That's just what I need. Kind of reminds me of No Exit. Oh, sorry, one more with a cover that's really frightening. It's called And Then I Woke Up by Malcolm Devlin. I always follow Tor on Instagram because they do so many cover reveals, and this is one of the ones that grabbed my attention. It says it's a creepy, layered literary story about the false narratives and their ability to divide us. In a world reeling from an unusual plague, monsters lurk in the streets, while terrified survivors arm themselves and roam the countryside in packs. Or perhaps something very different is happening. When a disease affects how reality is perceived, it's hard to be certain of anything. Definitely intrigued by that one. And then another one that Tor posted is the next Lee Mangelo is called Feed Them Silence, which sounds very spooky. Feed Them Silence begs the question, what does it mean to be in kind with non-human animals? Dr. Sean Caludin uses neurological interface to translate a subject wolf's perception for human consumption, but as her relationship with the subject becomes complicated, she puts her research and her marriage at risk. I haven't read Summer Suns yet, but I'm reading it in the next like month-ish. So this one's definitely on my radar. I want to see the cover so badly. And that's all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you heard anything that sounds intriguing to you that you want to pick up. Again, the Goodreads link will be down below. And tell me anything else that has been recently announced that you're excited about, because I would just love, I love when these videos are just like us talking about all the things we're so excited about. My favorite thing is always learning about upcoming books and just getting so hyped about everything coming up, even though I have hundreds of books that I already have to read. Like, I just love adding more things to my TBR. If you agree, give me a like. I'll see you later. Bye!